Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and in this video we're going to be giving you our multi-tester comparison video of how the New Balance SC Elite V4 compares to the Hoka Cielo X1. So here's the nitty-gritty details of what you need to know about these two new super shoes. Let's start with price, and the SC Elite V4 costs £260 in the UK and $250 in the US, while the Cielo X1 is £250 in the UK and $270 in the US. In terms of drops, the Cielo X1 has a 7mm drop and a stack height of 39mm at the heel and 32mm at the forefoot. The SC Elite has a 4mm drop and is 40mm at the heel and 36mm at the forefoot. Weight-wise, a men's UK size 8 in the Elite V4 dropped in at 225 grams on the scale compared to 242 grams on the Cielo X1, so the Hoka is the heavier of the two shoes. In terms of uppers, it's a mesh one for the New Balance shoe and a knitted one for the Cielo X1. Into those midsoles, and it's a PIBA based one for Hoka with a dual layer system that offers a softer top layer and a firmer layer below a winged carbon plate. The SC Elite V4 goes full PIBA, and that fuel cell foam is joined by a lighter version of New Balance's Energy Arc carbon plate that's now curvier than the one used in previous shoes. Both offer rocker profiles to help you get quickly through those transitions from heel to toe. Sole-wise, Hoka opts for less rubber coverage compared to the New Balance one to help keep weight down and focus that rubber in places that's set to take the most regular pounding during racing and training.
So I found the fit of both of these shoes was good for me on length. They are both UK 9s and US 9.5s, which is the normal size I wear for both of these brands, and sometimes it can come a little bit snug, especially with New Balance, but both of these shoes had a good amount of room in the toe box, I think. I don't think they're too narrow or anything like that as well. I think my foot was held really well in place by both shoes. One little concern on New Balance is the heel. It's such an open design, very big at the back there. It can be a bit loose. I was a bit worried about heel rub. I could feel a little bit of it going on in my first run, so I heel locked it, and it's been completely fine since then. So I think that some people are going to have real trouble with this shoe around the heels. Like I know Kieran had his heel ripped to shreds by it, but with heel locking, it might help or something like that. But that's something to look out for with New Balance. Hoka, I had no such concerns. Really good heel design on this shoe. The laces are terrible. It's just such a weird material. It doesn't make any sense to me that you can put all this research and design into such a great shoe all round and then whack these laces on, but haven't actually been a problem. Once I've got them done up, they have stayed tied throughout runs of up to 2.5 hours, but I'd probably swap these laces out. It is a bit weird that they've got such bad laces for such a good shoe.
So in terms of fit, I've had both of these shoes in a UK size 8. That is my typical running shoe size. That's generally the shoe size that works for me in both of these brands' shoes in general. Maybe there's been the odd occasion where I've maybe wanted to go half size up in the New Balance, but generally going 8 has been fine. Now in terms of the fit of these shoes, I would say I've had a better experience with the Cielo X1 compared to the SC Elite V4, but I think they both have their good and kind of bad kind of elements or not so good elements. With the Cielo X1, it is a more racing, kind of narrow, kind of fitting shoe. It's got a rigid upper in general, and it takes a bit of time to get into, but ultimately when you're in, you're locked in. And that's kind of what I want in a racing style shoe. The space up front of the toes has been absolutely fine for me. I've done longer marathon training runs in this. I've done shorter distances in this as well too. And the space and the toe box have been absolutely fine for me. I like the fact you've got some internal heel padding here as well, so you're getting some control there at the back, but also you're getting something that's going to offer a little bit a level of comfort there and kind of a lockdown as well too. The New Balance SC Elite V4, it's a bit more of a traditional, conventional kind of racing style shoe. I'd say the lockdown, or getting that lockdown on the tongue and the lace, is a little bit more successful or easy to do than it is on the Cielo X1. I mean, the space up front of the toe has been absolutely fine. I know some people have found it a little bit snug, but for me, the space has been fine on my longer runs. Now, there isn't any kind of internal heel padding, any kind of heel padding whatsoever. We have talked about the lockdown, the kind of heel rub and things like that. Definitely some issues I had in my earlier runs. I wouldn't say it's entirely gone away, even though I've kind of adjusted the kind of lacing system, but it's been fine. I just wish maybe there was some kind of internal heel padding in here, just to improve that kind of fit and kind of that lockdown in general. So for me, I would say the Cielo X1 has fit a little bit better, but I think going true to size in both of these shoes, a UK size 8, has been absolutely fine.
Oh, these are two big launches for 2024 from Hoka and New Balance. Both of them are carbon shoes that I think are geared towards the marathon. They're both a little bit heavier than lots of other shoes on the market. They've got big stacks of foam. They've got a lot of comfort and then a lot of bounce. I think they're both big bouncy carbon shoes as opposed to some of the more aggressive tippy forward ones, but I think they do feel fairly different on the run, and overall in my testing I would say that I preferred the way the Hoka Cielo has felt. I've really enjoyed using it of late. I had the New Balance in first, and I did do a good long run in this shoe and a really hard track workout actually, where I was doing mile reps around kind of threshold pace, around 5:30 a mile, and then just doing a 400 float recovery, so not really slowing down too much, and they felt really good actually. I have to say that whole session overall I averaged around my marathon pace for about 12k, and it felt very comfortable, very cruisy in this shoe. Like, didn't love how they felt when I tried to push to faster paces at other times, but in terms of a cruiser that can hold fast paces really well, the SE Elite does that really well. It doesn't really feel very fast or aggressive or anything like that. It's got such a big wedge of foam underfoot and it's fairly soft, but it does transition you through your foot start pretty well. Get a good amount of bounce. It is a really effective carbon shoe, that's for sure. Like, I'm going to have to pick between these, and we always talk about different carbon shoes being better than the other, and it's always very marginal. I'll say that. Like, the SE Elite V4 is an effective carbon shoe that does the job of making you more efficient and very fast while protecting the legs well, but I just didn't love the way it felt underfoot. It didn't feel that aggressive to me. It felt a little bit bigger than some of the other shoes, and actually that includes the Cielo, even though this is the heavier shoe. Now, it's quite an off-putting weight, that's for sure. When you look at the Hoka Cielo specs, it's a pretty weighty shoe in my size. It's over 250 grams, and that immediately puts you on the edge of, I'm going to go racing in this shoe. I can find shoes that weigh a bit less. But when I ran in this shoe, I've done a really hard track workout and a 24 miler at the weekend in this shoe, and they've both been spectacular. I really have loved the way it feels. It's unbelievably bouncy. That's certainly the first thing you notice about it, is just how springy the foam is on this shoe. It really feels like you're getting a lot from that big wedge of foam underfoot in a really propulsive, bouncy manner. But actually, it's not just a big bouncy shoe. It's got a really aggressive rocker, and you do feel that on the run. You are moving through your foot strike quite lightly and effectively, and actually it feels almost nimble as a result, despite the fact it is such a big shoe and so hefty. So the first run I did was on the track, where I did 15 1k reps. The first set was I did in 3 sets of 5. The first set was at 330k, then 320k, and then 310k, and cruised through the first set. That's what I'd expect from it. That's my marathon pace. Felt really good for that. Just 1k reps, felt very easy. 320 felt good, but actually it was the 310s where I think I did them all on pace except the last one, where I was just flailing around and ran like a 314. But for a big shoe, it really moves fast, and actually it didn't feel like it was holding me back in any way. I was still turning my feet over at my usual very high cadence. I had a very high cadence, quite a shuffly runner, and maybe this shoe is built more for more bounding runners who'll get more bounce from it, but it still felt really good to me on that run. And then on the 24 miler I did at the weekend, second half of that was I was doing, I think, 350 a k and then 340 a k for the final 12 miles, and actually sped up towards 330 a k at the end. Protects the legs so well. This is really a shoe that's going to be great for all those marathons and those long training runs. Loads of protection and loads of speed there if you do want to tap into it. So I think they are both similar shoes in terms of the way they are set up to be big, bouncy, protective, comfortable shoes, more for longer races with loads of foam underfoot, but I think you get more bounce, I think you get a better rocker, and I do think it almost feels nimbler and more aggressive, the Hoka, than the New Balance, even though the New Balance is the larger shoe of the two.
So into that run test now, post out individual reviews. I've spent a fair amount in both of these shoes, and that's really because it's marathon training time, it's long marathon training time, so these have been the ideal shoes to kind of have at my disposal to kind of run in. Now, while these are definitely shoes that you can run and race in shorter distances, I did in the Hoka Cielo X1, I haven't in the Elite V4, I do think they are built to give you that speed over longer distances. So that's really why I've been mainly putting them to test. I have still been in track sessions with them and shorter, sharper stuff, but I've really tried to fit in more longer runs, kind of 15 miles plus at my kind of near or close to my marathon pace. Now, in terms of the experiences, there are some similarities. Now, obviously, they are both kind of PIBA based kind of midsoles, and that's, I think, a really important and I think a good thing on both of these shoes. There's some bounce here, and when you want that bounce and you've got a good rocker in both of these shoes, that's what you want to kind of carry you through over those longer distances and make sure you can still kind of maintain that kind of smoother, faster feeling in these two shoes. What I would say is that bounce on the New Balance SE Elite V4, because I think the difference in the stack heights I think make a difference for me, just feels a little bit lower for me. It still works, it's still there, an aggressive element to it, but it's nowhere near as bouncy and as aggressive as the Hoka Cielo X1 feels to kind of run in. When you get going in this shoe, it really is kind of propelling you to go forward and get you quickly through those transitions. I think the New Balance SE Elite V4 does the same thing, but it's nowhere, I don't think, as pronounced as it is on the Cielo X1. I've had good long runs in both of these shoes. What I was mainly concerned about was the more aggressive nature of the Cielo X1. Would it come at a cost of how I'd feel after my run or the next day? I did a kind of 20 miler in it. I've done a longer run already in this shoe. It felt good after that, first long run, that 20 miler at around marathon pace. Even in places where I had to kind of ease off, where I thought it might feel a little bit awkward to run in, there was no issues there. My legs feel pretty good. This is the following day after that kind of run. My legs feel pretty good, and I've been out doing some kind of slower, kind of easier runs today. So from that point of view, it's been absolutely fine. So I think for me, there's some similarities in terms of the makeups of these shoes, but ultimately the bouncier feel on the Cielo X1 is definitely more noticeable. I do think the rocker is more aggressive than it is on the New Balance SC Elite V4. These are both going to be shoes that I feel can carry you over that marathon distance and making sure you can maintain that. And I think maybe you're getting something that's going to be very accommodating. I didn't think they were overly erratic or unstable, which is something I thought I was going to find the Cielo X1. From that point of view, I think these both kind of served me very well in the long runs that I've done. So I think, for me, I think two very good kind of marathon shoes. This is a much better marathon shoe, the SC Elite V4, than the SC Elite 3 in terms of handling that longer distance and feeling comfortable and giving you that kind of rocker and kind of bounce that you would want over that distance. The Cielo X1 does it in a more aggressive nature, does it with a more pronounced bounce, a kind of higher, bounce. It's probably a little bit firmer because of that dual layer PBA setup, where it's a lot softer in the New Balance SC Elite V4. And I think I kind of prefer that dual layer system here, which I think gives you that comfort, but also gives you that firmer, more responsive feel that you want when you are racing. And again, I do think that kind of makes a bit of a difference. Durability wise, as I said, I've run a bit more in the Cielo X1, but it has been across two shoes. I think, you're getting a bit more coverage on the SC Elite V4, but I think ultimately, I'm not seeing terrible signs of wear on the two Cielo X1 shoes that I've used, and I think it's going to be a shoe that it can handle a good amount of running time, the kind of longer running time as well as the SC Elite V4. Maybe you're going to get a little bit more of the SC Elite V4. It's going to give you that kind of daily trainer feel out of it, as well as kind of being a racing shoe as well too. So two very good shoes that I've enjoyed testing in over this period. I think for me, there's a little bit more in the Hoka Cielo X1's locker in terms of the ride, the feeling, that kind of liveliness, that kind of racing feel that immediately comes from it as soon as you put it on. Whereas I think with the New Balance SC Elite V4, you really need to kind of bed into with it to get that kind of real, kind of nice racing feel over that longer distance.
Both of these are good complex shoes and shoes that I've enjoyed testing this year. They're both very fast, effective shoes for sure, but when I tested New Balance, I thought that's a good shoe. I think it's the best shoe in New Balance's range, but it's not a shoe that sprung into consideration for me ahead of the London Marathon this year, my main race the first half of the year, or other races. I think, it's a really cracking shoe, but it's not one that I'd desperately want to go and race in ahead of other options. There are a few other shoes I put ahead of it that I would use for my A races first, and one of those is the Hoka Cielo X1 that I didn't really expect to come in and be as good as it is, just because, again, I was put off by that weight on paper, but on the foot, it feels fantastic. It's a shoe I think that is right up there with the best marathon racing shoes in particular. I'm really not sure if I'm going to use it myself or if I'm going to stick to the Alpha 3, having loved using that as well, but the Cielo is an amazing long distance shoe and actually is a lot quicker than you expect for shorter races as well. The weight isn't ideal, like it'd be brilliant if on paper or on the scales it came in at 210 grams instead of 250, but actually on the run it feels amazing. When you combine the rocker it has here with the foams underfoot, the plate, everything is set up to feel really fast but also very protective, and I do think you can log big runs in this shoe. Like I did 24 miles in this on Saturday, and Sunday my legs felt pretty good, and most of that's just down to training. That's one of the big things you get with carbon shoes these days. They are so comfortable and still so quick, and I think the Cielo X1 really exemplifies that. I really love it as a shoe, and I would get it ahead of the New Balance certainly, because I think they're two shoes that are built along similar lines with those big stacks of foam and more of a marathon focus, and I think the Hoka just does it a bit more effectively and feels a lot more fun underfoot as well. Feels more like that kind of bouncy, aggressive carbon racer you expect. New Balance undeniably is a great shoe, but I do prefer the way the Hoka feels, the way it runs, and I think it's got that little bit more of a propulsive punch to it when it comes to those long events.
So my verdict on whether you should go for the Hoka Cielo X1 or the New Balance SC Elite V4. Now from a UK perspective, the Cielo X1 is cheaper. In the US, it is more expensive than the SC Elite V4. Now in terms of pure racing, in terms of how it feels over distances, and the Hoka Cielo X1 has been the most fun shoe, the most enjoyable shoe, but just feels like the faster shoe ultimately. There's definitely a little bit more assistance there. It's a more aggressive ride, a more propulsive feel in general, and I feel like people are going to enjoy running in a shoe. And if you can make the fit work for you and you can deal with the kind of not so great laces, then I think you're going to get a really polished racing shoe and running shoe over that marathon distance. Now, the New Balance SE Elite V4 is a very good racing shoe as well too. Or I just don't think you get that same, you know, kind of unadulterated kind of propulsive feel from it. You're getting some bounce there, you're getting a nice rocker in there as well too, and I think you're getting a good solid outsole on this shoe as well. And if you can get that fit to work for you, then absolutely there's a great shoe here to race in as well too. I think it's a no-brainer for me to go to the Hoka Cielo X1 over the New Balance SE Elite V4. If you are looking for a pure racing shoe over that distance, I feel like this is better equipped, and I feel like it just feels like the more enjoyable shoe based on the testing that I've done so far. I do think I would absolutely be able to run a marathon in this shoe, but I think ultimately if I had one to pick right now, I think it's going to be the Hoka Cielo X1. It just feels like an exciting shoe to run in, and there's so much going for it, and crucially it does all the other things you hope a kind of marathon long distance shoe would do in terms of that protection, that comfort, and making sure you can get to that finish line, actually make sure your legs feel good even when you're running your hardest. Okay, so there you have it. That is our take on how the New Balance SE Elite V4 compares to the Hoka Cielo X1. Now, hopefully we've shed a little bit more light on how these super shoes compare, and hopefully help you decide between the two shoes themselves. Now, if you've got any other comparison videos that you'd like to see, do let us know in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you in the next Run Testers video.